Before he was a Hall of Famer, Rey Mysterio was a teenage prodigy in Mexico. From masked underdog to global icon, his journey reshaped wrestling forever. Rey Mysterio Jr., early 90s, Mexico. Rey Mysterio's journey began long before the bright lights of WWE. In the early 90s, he was just Rey Mysterio Jr., a teenage prodigy trained by his uncle, Rey Mysterio Sr. The name meant King Mystery, but his style made him unforgettable. While most luchadors relied on traditional holds and mat work, young Rey brought an acrobatic, fearless energy that felt more like gravity was optional. Fans in Tijuana and AAA promotions saw something new. This kid wasn't just competing, he was reinventing lucha libre on the fly. What set Rey apart was how young he was. At only 14 years old, he was already wrestling grown men and dazzling crowds with moves nobody else could pull off. He'd twist mid-air, land clean, and make it look effortless. Few realized it then, but these small arenas in Mexico were witnessing the birth of a style that would influence generations. At this stage, his finisher wasn't the 619 yet. It was the springboard Hurricane Rana, a move so fast that audiences often couldn't believe their eyes. This rise in Mexico built his reputation, but Rey's career was about to take a massive leap. By 1995, he caught the attention of promoters outside Mexico who wanted to showcase lucha libre in the US. And when Rey arrived in ECW, he didn't just fit in, he blew the roof off. His Mexican foundation became the launching pad for the next era, where America would get its first real taste of the high-flying style that defined Rey Mysterio. ECW Rey, 1995 to 96. By 1995, Rey Mysterio took his high-flying style north of the border and landed in ECW, a promotion that thrived on chaos, brutality, and unpredictability. For a 5'6" luchador, this was the ultimate test. Could his lightning-fast style hang in a world of steel chairs, tables, and hardcore violence? The answer came quick. Rey wasn't just able to hang, he stole the show. His matches with Psychosis became instant classics. In Mexico, they'd already built a rivalry, but in ECW, the stakes were higher, the crowds rowdier, and the violence more unforgiving. The two tore through arenas with insane dives and counters that American fans had rarely seen. Paul Heyman, always ahead of the curve, showcased Rey as something different, a glimpse into the future of wrestling. Rey's speed and creativity stood out even more in a company filled with brawlers and hardcore fighters. ECW crowds weren't easy to impress, but Rey flipped them from skeptical to stunned. Night after night, his matches ended with fans chanting his name. One of the wildest details from this run, ECW rings were smaller than WWE's, which meant Rey had even less space to pull off his dives. Yet he still managed to hit moves that seemed impossible. Though his time in ECW was short, it was crucial. Rey had introduced lucha libre to the American mainstream in a way no one else had. Bigger promotions were watching closely, and it didn't take long before WCW came calling. What started as a proving ground in ECW soon launched Rey Mysterio into the biggest stage of his early career, the global spotlight of World Championship Wrestling. WCW Masked Cruiserweight, 1996 to 98. From the chaos of ECW, the next chapter unfolded under the bright lights of WCW. In 1996, the Cruiserweight division exploded onto Monday Nitro, and at the center of it all was a masked sensation who seemed to defy physics. While the main event was dominated by giants like Hogan and Nash, it was the smaller guys stealing the show, and no one stole it quite like him. His very first pay-per-view outing against Dean Malenko set the tone. The contrast was striking. Malenko's cold, technical precision versus Rey's fearless aerial assault. Audiences had seen fast wrestlers before, but never someone who could chain together springboards, flips, and counters at that speed. It was a new language of wrestling, and fans learned it match by match. The rivalry with Eddie Guerrero took things to another level. Their showdown at Halloween Havoc 1997 became an instant classic. Mask versus title, a clash of pride and legend, became so iconic that 2 decades later, he brought it back to WWE, a living tribute to his WCW peak. What made this run unforgettable wasn't just the championships, but the proof it offered. Cruiserweights could main event the night without needing to be 7 feet tall. The superhero aura of the mask, the speed of the style, the emotion of the rivalries, it all worked. But just when the division was at its hottest, WCW pulled a move that shocked the wrestling world. By 1999, the mask that defined him would be gone. WCW Unmasked/Filthy Animals, 1999 to 2001. When WCW forced Rey to unmask in 1999, fans were stunned. The mask wasn't just part of his look, it was his identity. In Mexico, unmasking was reserved for career-defining moments. In WCW, it felt like just another storyline twist. Instead of letting it bury him, Rey adapted. He traded colorful gear for baggy pants, bandanas, and swagger, embracing a streetwise edge. Teaming with Conan Kidman and Juventud Guerrera as the Filthy Animals, he blended hip-hop culture with cruiserweight energy. His style shifted too, more grounded, more aggressive, but still sprinkled with aerial highlights. He wasn't just the little guy who could fly anymore. He was reinventing himself to survive in a company built around bigger stars. What many fans don't realize is Rey secretly kept a stash of his old masks, believing he'd wear them again. And when he joined WWE, that prophecy came true. The unmasking era divided fans, but it proved his charisma wasn't locked inside the mask. By the time WCW closed in 2001, he'd shown he could survive any curveball. And when WWE came calling, the mask returned, and with it, a whole new chapter. Before we jump into that next chapter, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the rest of Rey's story. WWE debut in 619 era, 2002 to 2005. When the mask returned in 2002, it felt like a rebirth. Rey's WWE debut wasn't just another signing, it was an event. He exploded onto SmackDown with a mix of superhero mystique and lightning-fast offense that instantly hooked the crowd. Suddenly, the cruiserweight division had a centerpiece, and kids had a new favorite masked hero to cheer for. The 619 became the move that defined him. Swinging around the ropes, striking with pinpoint precision, it was flashy, unique, and unforgettable. Every fan in the arena knew to chant along with the setup, making it one of the most interactive finishers in wrestling. But it wasn't his only weapon. Springboard dives, West Coast pops, and innovative counters kept his matches unpredictable, no matter the opponent. This era was filled with rivalries that showcased his versatility. Clashes with Kurt Angle, Eddie Guerrero, and Chris Jericho elevated him far beyond just a cruiserweight. He wasn't just holding his own against world champions, he was stealing the spotlight from them. Here's something many forget. WWE originally debated giving Rey a completely new finisher, but he pushed to bring in the 619 from his independent days, believing it would set him apart. And it became one of the most recognizable moves in wrestling history. By the mid-2000s, Rey wasn't just another high flyer on the roster. He had become one of the most popular stars in WWE, selling masks, posters, and action figures to kids all over the world. And while the 619 era solidified him as a fan favorite, the next chapter would shatter expectations. In 2006, Rey Mysterio, the eternal underdog, would rise to the very top and claim the biggest prize in the industry. Underdog World Champion 2006. 2006 gave fans a story they never thought possible. At just over 5 feet tall and 170 pounds, and earned his ticket to wrestle, designed as a tribute to both Eddie and his Mexican heritage, styled after Aztec warriors, a cultural statement on the biggest night of his career. That moment still stands as one of WWE's most emotional triumphs. But injuries and new opportunities soon pushed Rey beyond WWE into a global chapter. 2018. After stepping away in 2015, Rey wrote a new chapter worldwide. Back in Mexico with AAA, he was welcomed as both a returning hero and living legend. Fans who grew up watching him now brought their key. Thrived in a cinematic, story-driven setting that felt more like a gritty TV drama than a wrestling show. Over in NJPW, he proved he could still hang with the world's best, showing his versatility against technical and hard-hitting opponents. Wherever he went, the mask, the 619, and the aura followed. During this run, Rey even debuted superhero-inspired gear, like Wolverine and the Flash, blurring the line between lucha libre and comic book culture. This global stretch reminded the wrestling world that Rey's star power didn't depend on WWE. So when he returned in 2018, it wasn't just a comeback, it was the arrival of an international icon, ready to close his career on his own terms. Hall of Famer and family legacy, 2023 to present. By 2023, Rey Mysterio's story had come full circle. The teenage prodigy who once flew through tiny arenas in Mexico was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. It wasn't just about championships or highlight reels. It was recognition of a career that broke barriers for every wrestler who didn't fit the heavyweight mold. But instead of winding down, his final act turned even more personal. Years of tension with his son Dominic evolved into one of WWE's most compelling family dramas. What started as guidance turned into betrayal as Dominic stepped out of his father's shadow to carve his own villainous path. Their clash at WrestleMania 39 wasn't just another match. It was father versus son, legacy versus rebellion, and proof that Rey could still deliver when it mattered most. The mask, once a symbol of a fearless teenager, had become something far greater. It stood for decades of sacrifice, reinvention, and resilience. And in a rare honor, Rey became the first WWE Hall of Famer to keep wrestling full-time while still on the active roster, cementing just how unique his journey truly is. Today, every time he hits the 619, it carries both the weight of his past and the promise of the future. From Mexico to ECW, WCW, WWE, and beyond, Rey Mysterio's legacy isn't just about titles. It's about changing the perception of what a star could look like. His story began as the smallest man in the ring. It now stands as one of the biggest names in wrestling history. Rey Mysterio proved that size doesn't define greatness. It's heart and innovation that leave a legacy. Which era of Rey is your favorite? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more wrestling stories.